Okay, hi everyone. My name is Tomer. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at WEVO. WEVO is a Boston-based company. We've been around for about 6 years, and we work with mostly large organizations, working with UX research teams, product and marketing teams. And the goal of the platform is to help understand user feedback, and we do it at a very high volume. And most importantly, we do it at a very effortless way for our users. So I'll provide you a short overview of the WEVO platform, explain how it works, and then we'll dive into an example so you can see what WEVO actually looks like in the wild, and we'll look at some insights that were collected and analyzed for a company that everyone is familiar with. Okay, so to start off, I like to give a little bit of context as to where we fit in an ecosystem. What we have here is a little 2x2 chart. On the y-axis, we have the level of insights that a tool or an activity produces. And on the x-axis, we have the accuracy or the reliability of those insights. Down and to the left, worst case scenario is to rely on your intuition without it getting any customer feedback at all. Obviously, this is not where we want to be and not a very smart methodology in general. Up and to the left, we have the typical UX research tools that provide typically a really good level of insights, but require a tremendous amount of effort in order to gather those insights. That's why when we run typical user tests or focus groups, we'll do it with a very small group of people, maybe 5 or 8 people in a group. Anything more than that would require much more work, beyond, of course, the work of having to summarize findings, analyze them manually, and put them together into a report or a slide deck that can be used by other stakeholders. Down and to the right, what I like to call the retrospective tools are on the other side of the spectrum, typically integrated with the website itself. So A/B or multivariate tests, various analytics tools that do a really good job at showing us what is happening on a website, but don't do a really good job at explaining why. So a very accurate view, but quite superficial when it comes to understanding people's motivations and why they're behaving the way they are. Where WEVO comes in is we try to take the best of both worlds. So at the core of our solution, we're still very much relying on qualitative feedback from actual people. And as I mentioned before, we do it at a high volume. And then layered on top of that, we also have a quantitative analysis of that feedback, along with industry benchmarks, so we can understand how well we're doing and how we compare with other experiences that are tested. WEVO, I like to say, is instant start. There's no technical integration required. There's no traffic required from your website. We don't touch the live website at all. And it's literally very easy to get started, and we can do so right now with any website that's on the public internet. So how does WEVO work? Well, someone from the team logs in, gives us 3 things in order for us to get started with a study. Number 1 is identifying what experience it is that you'd like to study. That can be a URL to a live web page or flow of pages on your website. It can be a URL to a prototyping tool like Envision or Figma or Adobe XD. We can test the prototypes as well. Or you can even provide a mock-up of an experience that you haven't yet built out. So that can be just a flat image file. Secondly, we ask for the definition of who the target audience is based on any demographics information. It can be both consumers and businesses, and any type of behavioral characteristics that will help us find the audience. So we use that information to create screening questions so that we can screen in the right people and screen out the wrong people for your study. And then lastly, optionally but recommended, is specific information as to what are the objectives of the study, what is it that you would like to learn, or if you have some specific hypotheses that you would like to validate with WEVO, what are those hypotheses, and how would you like us to help you validate them? So it takes about 5 minutes to submit a test, maybe 10 if it's your first time. Very, very easy, and it's just filling out a form basically within the platform. When you click the Go button, the WEVO platform will go out to our panel partners. We've taken an approach where we've integrated with multiple panel companies, and our technology allows us to find panel participants that match the criteria that you've provided across multiple panels. We bring in about 200 people who match those criteria into each study. Those 200 people are brought into WEVO. They go through an experience in which they answer questions to a standardized survey that we use while interacting and informing themselves about the experience that you're testing. You could think of it as two tabs within a browser. One has a survey form, the other has the experience that you're testing, and we help the participants navigate back and forth between the two tabs so that they answer a few questions and then go in and experience what it is that you want to have them go through. It's standardized, so it's not something that you need to set up. We use the same survey template across all the different use cases that we help test. You do have an opportunity to add what we call custom questions into the survey if there is a particular question that you must ask, or if you'd like to segment your results based on a very specific particular segmentation that you're interested in. So through that process, we're collecting thousands and thousands of data points from the participants. Most of that data is in the form of answers to survey questions. And this is where our technology really comes into play. So we've collected a lot of very messy data, and we use a variety of natural language processing algorithms to analyze that data. We score it for quality so that we can eliminate anything that doesn't meet our quality threshold. So if someone used excessive profanity, didn't answer in a meaningful way, or maybe failed at some of our trick questions, we will remove everything that all their inputs. Then the real smart part of our platform is taking all that data that we've collected, all the participants' feedback, and sorting it and structuring it into a report, which I like to say tells the story of how your audience is responding to the asset that you're testing. That report has three main analyses in it. The first one helps you understand what are people's expectations before viewing the web page or the journey that you're testing with us. And then after they've had a chance to experience it, how well is that experience meeting their expectations? The second analysis scores the experience with a set of diagnostics, enabling you to see where you fall short versus industry benchmarks and where you have opportunities to improve. And then the third is a visual analysis, highlighting the areas within the experience that people like and find helpful as they're evaluating the product or service, and areas that they dislike and find take away from their experience as they're going through it. All of those analyses combine real quotes from the panel participants, along with that quantitative analysis that we layer up on top. And then in addition to the automated process that our platform provides, which I've described until now, we also will have a human analyst from our team jump in, spend about a day reviewing all the qualitative data we've collected, and they will summarize for you what are the key insights in an executive summary that comes as part of our report. A good way to think about it is that WEVO and the WEVO analyst, obviously not an expert in your business, but can do a really good job at doing the mile-wide research for you, so that we will help you identify what are the areas that have signal and where you should go and focus in and go mile deep as you continue doing your research. End to end, our process takes between 1 and 2 weeks, at which point we get a notification that you can log back into the platform and view the results. A quick read through the results typically takes about 15 minutes, but those insights are often shared across the organization, and I've seen teams spend many hours actually digging through and copying and pasting specific quotes that they found interesting and using it for many months down the road. So I'll highlight, before jumping into the platform itself to show an example, highlight 3 common use cases within WEVO. WEVO can be used for any web page or any prototype, as I mentioned before, but we've seen 3 ways to really get the most out of it. The first is evaluating a single page. So if you have a landing page or a PDP or maybe the home page, where you want to understand why is it that people aren't engaging or aren't converting. WEVO is also really good at validating a specific hypothesis or a hunch that you have about that page that you'd like to test out with your audience. Beyond a single page, you can also compare multiple pages with WEVO. And there are 2 main use cases for that. The first, very similar to an A/B test, I like to call it a pre-live A/B test. You can compare between multiple variants that you're thinking about running against each other. So maybe you have a live page with two options that you're thinking to replace it with. You can compare those three pages, and not only will you get the full monadic analysis of each one of those pages on its own, but you will also get a comparison where WEVO compares the scores of how those pages performed against each other. And secondly, or you can also test a competitor. As I mentioned at the very beginning, WEVO doesn't require any integration, and that enables you to test any page that's out there on the public internet. Many of our users are using that in order to test their competitors so that they can compare against them, get insights from their competitors, and see how they score versus those competitors. The third and actually most common use case is what we call a journey test. So beyond testing a single page or multiple single pages, you can also prescribe a user journey within WEVO that can be on and or off the company's website in order to get feedback on the journey in its entirety, and also understand why is it that you have attrition, for example, throughout the journey. So for example, it may be an ad that leads to a landing page and then an application process. Maybe you want to understand why is it that people are dropping out of the application once they begin it. WEVO will get you feedback on the entire journey end to end, and also help you diagnose each page or each step of the journey on its own. Okay, so I'll switch over to the platform now. I have here an example from a company that I think everyone is familiar with, Casper, the mattress company. We ran this test for them probably about 2 years ago. So this product still exists, and actually I encourage you to take a look at the live PDP to see the changes that were made since we tested this. I think some of them are quite correlated to some of our findings in this test. But this is their Wave Hybrid mattress. You can see here the target audience for this product based on Casper's target customers are young professionals. They were looking at people who live in large metro areas in the US. And very importantly, they were looking for people who are currently in market to buy a mattress within the next 6 months. So we're able to recruit 200 people who match that criteria, including the intent criteria. And I'll walk you through the insights that we collected from this panel. So where I'll start is the audience expectation. The first part of the WEVO test, before the panel participants have had an opportunity to view the page, but after we've given them some context that they're about to see a mattress product page from one of the leading mattress companies, we ask them what are their top hopes and what are their top concerns. And remember, these are people who are currently in market, interested in buying a mattress in the next 6 months. So using their own words, each person will describe their top hope and concern. For example, I may say, I really like soft mattresses. I hope this mattress is soft enough for me. We take that data, those verbatim quotes from people, and using a natural language processing algorithm, we theme their responses into different themes or different categories of expectations. And what you see here on the page are the top expectations that have bubbled up, the top themes of expectations that have bubbled up. The lengths of the bar here tell us how many people had an expectation that fell into each one of these themes. So the most common expectation was around comfort, as you can see. Second most common was on pricing, which is actually very unusual for any type of commerce experience that we test. And then towards the end of the survey, we remind each person what they had told us at the very beginning, top hopes and top concerns. And we ask them a number of questions to understand how well that expectation was met now that they've had about 15 minutes to familiarize themselves with a page in this case and answer a bunch of questions. So they're thinking about whether this page has met their expectations. So what you see on the bar are the colors that represent what proportion of the people for each one of the expectation themes that felt that their expectation that they had at the very beginning was fully met, somewhat met, versus not met at all. So obviously what you'd like to see here is more green, less red. But even regardless of how well you did, WEVO gives you really basic and I think powerful analysis of what are people most expecting? What's the most common expectation that people had? And then, of course, how well are you doing at meeting those expectations? So kind of like a pre versus post analysis of expectations and whether they were addressed given the product page that we're showing them. So that's the quantitative analysis here. On the bottom, we have the qualitative data supporting why people feel the way they do. So you can scroll through the different expectation themes. So for example, if I'll go to the pricing, I'll be able to see a representative sample of some of the things that people said as to why they felt that their pricing expectation was not met or why it was somewhat met, etc. We'll also see some basic demographics information to understand who the person is without any private information, of course. The next analysis is what we call the diagnostics. So one of the premises in WEVO is that it would be a very bad question to ask people, would you buy this mattress? Probably wouldn't get very valuable feedback. So instead, we've built a model that helps us understand people without asking them that question. Maybe even getting an answer that's more meaningful than yes, I would buy this mattress. I really like it. This model is based on 5 drivers where we measure how appealing people found the page and the product to be, whether they perceive the content to be clear on the page, how they perceive the brand from a credibility standpoint or an offer from a credibility standpoint, their overall experience, and how relevant were the value propositions to their actual needs. And what you can see here are the bars that represent the score for each one of these drivers. The black lines are our industry benchmarks for high consideration e-commerce in this case. We have different benchmarks for different industry verticals and product categories. So appeal and credibility scored above benchmark, as you can see. Experience and relevance are just around benchmark, not a statistically significant benchmark. That's why these bars are gray. But clarity, on the other hand, scored really low, at least a standard deviation below benchmark. So we have a clarity problem on the page very clearly. If I click on the clarity bar, down in the section below, I can get a collection of all the quotes from the panel participants that WEVO has determined has to do with people finding things either to be clear or not clear on the page. You can filter by particular audience demographics, or perhaps if you're interested in filtering by sentiment. I think that's actually what most people do. I would love to see what is it that people found to be unclear on the page. Show me all the negative sentiment, clarity quotes. So you can see literally with 2 clicks, I clicked on the clarity bar, I clicked on the negative sentiment. I get this really great low-hanging opportunity list of all the clarity issues that I have that I can address. Now, of course, maybe 1 or 2 of them may not be relevant or interesting, but that's why we have the high volume of participants, so that I could see it in a broader sense. I could see what is coming up repeatedly and where I have actual signal. Alternatively, if I don't want to filter out, so I'm not interested in the negative clarity, instead I want to track a particular phrase or a keyword or a theme. For example, comfort, which, if you recall, came up as the #1 expectation. I can type it in the search bar, and then I get all the quotes that have the word comfort or comfortable, and I could see how the use of that word and all those quotes have an impact on the appeal of the page, on the clarity, on the relevance. And I could go through and search this way, this really large amount of data that I collected from the panel. In addition to the diagnostics, what I think is typically the fan favorite when I do these demos is our sentiment map. So another way to think about all this data that we've collected is based on the location on the page to which people are responding. We asked the panel participants to identify an area on the page that they like and explain to us why, and then areas on the page that they dislike and explain why again. This helps us identify what is it that people are reacting to, and we have ways to elicit both an emotional or first impression type of reaction, as well as a more rational one, to understand what is it that people find helpful as they're considering this product, and what is it that people find take away from their experience. With that data, we're able to create 2 heat maps, as you can see here. one showing positive sentiment. And if I switch over to the dislikes, you'll be able to see another heat map of the negative sentiment on the page. And using the tool, what I can do is I can highlight particular areas. So for example, if I highlight the WEVO hybrid mattress header over here, where I can see there was a little bit of heat, I'll see over to the left specific quotes from people that were pinned to this area telling me why they disliked this area on the page. So maybe the title is not so interesting. I can see there's a little bit of a hot spot here on the pricing, also the $25.95 price tag, which not surprisingly many people reacted negatively to. But let me scroll down and show you something that I think is a little bit more interesting. This section over here. So Casper is a mattress in a box, as I'm sure everyone knows. And they use this image here to show how the mattress is delivered in a 3-foot tall box to your doorstep. Now, in many ways, I think this backfires on Casper. Number one, you could see here in some of the quotes, many people are concerned about returning the product. Even though it says free, easy returns, people are thinking, well, if it's delivered in this box, I'm sure that after I pop it out and it inflates, etc., how do I get it back in and return it? Also, and I think more importantly, if you recall, again, the comfort was the number one thing people were looking for. People are actually quite skeptical and concerned that a mattress that is scrunched up into such a small box will actually end up being comfortable for them once they pop it out, especially as they have no opportunity to try it out before they buy it. On the other hand, I'd like to show a section up here that did really well. So I'll switch over to the likes and go up here to this section. The header here, or the copy, more support where you need it, did really well. People really appreciate the emphasis on support. And then this image does incredibly well as well. This X-ray view where you can see the springs and the foam that the mattress is made up of, plus you can see how the mattress contours to this person's body, is something that gave people a real comfort around how this mattress will give them support. People who have back problems really appreciated this. And also it emphasized that the mattress is durable, something that many people were concerned about too. What brings WEVO all together? So we've gone through the expectation, the diagnostic map. I'm sure you can see that you could spend here many hours going through all the quals, searching through different themes and different keywords that you're researching. But what really brings it all together is where our analyst does that work for you at a high level and summarizes for you the key things. So our goal here is not at all to replace the UX researcher, but instead it's to guide you as to where there is signal so that you can spend your time in the most meaningful areas and really go deep into potential solutions and understanding the problems better. So our analysts will summarize, and by the way, we have some internal tools to identify trends in the data, and that's see also and layer on top the quantitative elements in addition to the qual that we can all read, obviously. But we will summarize the key findings and takeaways. I like to scroll always to the last section where you kind of have like a summary of the summary, where we try to make this as actionable as possible for you. Those actions may be immediate opportunities to make changes, but in fact, actually more common than that would be opportunities to either run an A/B test if there is a very particular question that's in mind, or maybe conduct more research or give it more thought to see how you can address some of the issues that have bubbled up. I started kind of from the end. I went through the actual data first. I think many of our users will start at the key findings and then work their way back to go through the expectations, go through the diagnostics, and then identify areas that have been highlighted here. In addition, I just wanted to quickly mention, you may have seen these yellow stars or these empty stars across the test. That gives you an opportunity to bookmark any interesting quote that you would like to get back to, and then it will show up in this little notepad here. And as it does, you can see there is a hyperlink. You can click on that hyperlink, and WEVO will do the exact place where that quote lives, so that you can then go back and see the context for it. typically where I ask for any questions, but I will leave the floor to you to ask any questions in the chat, and we'd be more than happy, of course, to do more personalized demos and give people access to some of our demos so that we can have further discussions in the future. Thank you very much.